Humanity was on its last legs, a mere shadow of the thriving civilization that once spanned continents. The mountains, once a symbol of grandeur and majesty, were now home to the last remnants of resistance, hidden deep in their caverns. The alien invaders, with their advanced technology and unyielding determination, had wiped out almost every vestige of human society. Earth's cities were smoking ruins, and the cries of the fallen echoed in the empty streets. It felt as though the very air carried the weight of despair. Humanity had been all but forgotten, erased from the galactic stage. Captain Mason, standing at the entrance of the hidden stronghold, stared out over the barren landscape. The winds howled through the mountain passes, kicking up dust and ash, remnants of battles long lost. His uniform, once pristine, was now frayed and faded, much like the hope that had dwindled within the hearts of the survivors. He could feel the end coming. Everyone could. Inside the stronghold, the atmosphere was no different. Tired faces huddled together, clinging to what little they had left. Food was rationed, water carefully allocated, and every whisper of good news was quickly swallowed by the all-encompassing fear of what lay beyond the mountains. The aliens had been thorough, eliminating all organized resistance, leaving the survivors scattered and disorganized. Yet here, in the dim light of the caves, a few humans persisted, living like ghosts in the shadows of their former glory. Mason sat alone near a dimly lit console, the hum of the old machinery the only sound in the vast, empty room. The screen flickered intermittently, a reminder of the stronghold's deteriorating state. He'd spent hours trying to reach other resistance groups, but silence greeted every attempt. Communications had been severed months ago. No more rescue missions. No more reinforcements. The final sweep had come, and the aliens were certain they had wiped out the last traces of human resistance. But Mason wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. He leaned back in his chair, eyes closed, recalling the first days of the invasion. Humanity had been so confident, believing that its defenses could withstand any extraterrestrial threat. The alien ships had arrived in Earth's orbit silently, their intentions unknown at first. World leaders scrambled to establish communication, hoping that these beings had come in peace. That hope had quickly turned to terror when the attacks began. The devastation was swift, brutal. Earth's defenses were shattered within weeks, and the proud militaries of the world were reduced to rubble. Mason remembered those days well. He had been a pilot then, a commander in the Air Force, leading squadrons in what was thought to be humanity's last stand. But they had been woefully unprepared. The alien ships moved like nothing they'd ever seen, slicing through the skies with impossible speed and precision. Mason had watched as entire fleets were obliterated in seconds. He had seen friends, colleagues, comrades, all wiped out in a matter of moments. The memory weighed heavily on him. He had survived, but survival had come at a cost. He had lost more than his comrades in those days. He had lost faith. Faith in humanity's ability to overcome this invasion, faith in their technology, their strategy. The aliens were too strong, too advanced. And now, here he was, hiding in the mountains, like an animal waiting to be hunted down. The survivors talked in hushed tones about the rumors, the Eagles, they called them. Stories passed down about a top-secret defense program that had been developed in the early stages of the invasion. These rumors spoke of advanced fighter jets, prototypes that were said to be capable of taking on the alien fleet. But to most, they were nothing more than myths, stories meant to inspire hope where there was none. Mason had dismissed the idea for a long time, considering it nothing more than a desperate fantasy. But now, as the days grew darker and the end seemed inevitable, he found himself thinking more and more about those rumors. He had been high enough in the military to know that many projects had been kept classified, even from him. The Eagles could be real. And if they were, they could be humanity's last chance. He stood up, pacing in the small room, trying to piece together fragments of information he had overheard throughout the years. The Eagles were supposedly hidden, tucked away in a secret hangar, somewhere within the mountain range. But no one had ever been able to confirm their existence. The program had been shut down early in the war, and with most of Earth's military records destroyed, there was little to go on. Still, it was something. Something worth pursuing. Mason returned to the console, typing furiously, digging through whatever remaining records he could find. He sifted through old military databases, archives that had been corrupted and damaged beyond recognition. Hours passed, but finally, he found a faint lead, a classified document, heavily encrypted, with coordinates buried deep within the system. His heart raced. The location matched an area not far from the stronghold. He sat back, hands shaking slightly. If the Eagles were there, if they were operational, they could turn the tide. But if the location was a dead end, just another false hope, it would mean wasting precious time. Time they didn't have. Mason knew he couldn't share this with the others. Not yet. If it turned out to be nothing, he didn't want to crush the last flicker of hope they held. He would go alone. He had to know the truth. Mason didn't waste any time. He gathered what little gear he had, old military fatigues, a rusted sidearm, and a map of the mountain range. It wasn't much, but it didn't need to be. This was a reconnaissance mission, not an assault. His mind was racing, the thought of the Eagles becoming more than just a passing idea. They could be the key to humanity's survival. But first, he had to find them. The path to the coordinates was treacherous. The mountains had become dangerous, not just because of the alien patrols that occasionally scanned the area, but due to the landslides, erosion, and natural decay caused by the aftermath of constant bombardment. Mason moved carefully, his steps calculated, as he wound his way through narrow passages and over unstable terrain. Each step closer to the location made his heart beat faster, though the exhaustion of the journey was quickly setting in. His thoughts were occupied by the document he had found. The coordinates seemed too good to be true, buried deep in a corrupted database that even he almost missed. It felt strange, like something was trying to hide it or protect it from being discovered. But why? The thought gnawed at him as he continued, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon for any sign of alien movement. The aliens were everywhere, and yet they were invisible, silent hunters, always watching. He knew they could appear at any moment. Hours passed before Mason finally reached the entrance to an old bunker, almost entirely hidden by rock and debris. It looked abandoned, long forgotten. The rusted door creaked as he pulled it open, revealing a dark and cold interior. His flashlight flickered as he stepped inside, illuminating the walls that were lined with decades-old equipment and supplies. Dust hung thick in the air. The silence was overwhelming. Mason moved deeper into the bunker, following the faint glow of emergency lights that had long since dimmed. He found the control room, its panels cracked and in disrepair, but some of the old machinery still seemed operational. As he scanned the room, he saw it, the logo of the Eagles, emblazoned on a nearby console. His breath caught in his throat. This was it. The terminal, though aged and weathered, still had power. Mason's fingers flew across the keyboard as he accessed what remained of the system. Data files flashed on the screen, but most of them were unreadable, corrupted beyond use. He was about to give up when a set of coordinates appeared, followed by a map of the bunker. It led him to a lower level, a hangar bay that had been locked down. With renewed determination, he followed the map deeper into the bunker, descending several flights of stairs until he reached the sealed hangar door. The control panel was damaged, wires exposed and sparking, but Mason managed to hotwire the mechanism. The door groaned as it slid open, revealing a massive chamber on the other side. His eyes widened as the hangar lights flickered on, one by one, casting a dim glow over the rows of fighter jets that stood before him. The Eagles. They were real. Sleek, angular, and unlike any fighter jet Mason had ever seen. They looked pristine, as though they had been frozen in time, waiting for this moment. Mason approached the nearest jet, running his hand along the smooth surface. These were no ordinary planes. They had been designed for something beyond Earth's technology, fast, nimble, and armed to the teeth. He marveled at their structure, recognizing some of the technology, but also noting unfamiliar modifications. It was clear that these jets were equipped with weaponry far more advanced than anything humanity had ever deployed. The Eagles had been built to fight back against the aliens, to give humanity a fighting chance in the war. But why had they been hidden away? Why hadn't they been used when humanity needed them the most? As Mason inspected the jets, he found the answer. A series of logs on a nearby terminal explained that the Eagles had been part of a top-secret project, designed to be humanity's last resort in case the war took a turn for the worse. But the project had been shelved prematurely, deemed too risky, and with Earth's military infrastructure crumbling, there was no one left to pilot them. The hangar had been sealed and forgotten, lost in the chaos of the alien invasion. Mason felt a mix of emotions: anger that these powerful machines had been hidden away when they could have made a difference, and hope that now, with the aliens believing they had won, the Eagles could be used to strike back. He wasted no time in booting up the system that controlled the jets. The interface was surprisingly functional, given the years of neglect. Power surged through the hangar as the jets hummed to life, their engines still functional, their weapons systems online. Mason checked the diagnostics. Everything was operational. He was looking at humanity's best-kept secret, and now it was his to command. But there was a problem. He couldn't fly them alone. The Eagles required multiple pilots, each controlling a squadron of jets. Without more pilots, Mason could only activate a fraction of the fleet. He had to make a choice: fly one jet himself or return to the stronghold and risk bringing others into the fold. The jets were formidable, but even they couldn't win the war alone. Mason needed help. His mind raced as he weighed his options. Time was running out. The aliens could discover the hangar at any moment. Every second spent debating was a second closer to being caught. But the thought of flying one of these jets, leading the charge against the alien invaders, was too powerful to ignore. He knew the risks, but he had no other choice. Mason made up his mind. He would pilot one of the Eagles and launch a solo strike against the alien fleet. If he could take down their command ship, he might buy humanity enough time to regroup and rebuild. The Eagles had been designed for this, one final stand. He climbed into the cockpit of the lead jet, strapping himself in and powering up the controls. The dashboard lit up, displaying a series of readouts and tactical information. He gripped the controls, feeling the power of the machine beneath him. This was it. This was humanity's last chance. As the hangar doors opened, Mason guided the jet out into the open air. The skies above were clear, but he knew it wouldn't be long before the alien fleet detected his presence. He set his course for the alien mothership, the heart of their operation. It was a suicide mission, but he didn't care. If he could take down that ship, he could cripple the aliens' hold on Earth. The jet roared to life, speeding toward the horizon as Mason's heart pounded in his chest. He was ready for whatever came next. The Eagles were real, and the aliens had no idea what was coming for them. The moment Mason was airborne, the full power of the Eagle became clear. The jet cut through the sky with a level of speed and control he had never experienced before. Everything felt sharp, responsive, as though the jet was an extension of his body. The hum of the engines, the subtle vibrations in the cockpit, this was a machine built for one purpose: war. As he soared over the landscape, his sensors lit up with alerts. Alien drones had picked up his presence. They would be scrambling fighters soon. Mason didn't flinch. He expected this. He banked hard to the left, heading straight for the coordinates of the alien mothership. His mind was focused, his breathing steady. The only way to win was to get close enough to deliver a direct hit, and that meant navigating through the enemy's most well-guarded territory. Before long, the first wave of alien ships appeared on his radar. Sleek, insect-like craft started toward him at impossible speeds, their formation tight and deliberate. These were the same ships that had obliterated Earth's defenses years ago. The ones that had left him and so many others for dead. But now, Mason had the Eagle. He had something they didn't expect, a weapon from the past, forgotten but still deadly. His fingers danced over the controls, locking onto the first target. A missile launched from beneath the Eagle's wing, streaking toward the lead alien ship. The enemy tried to dodge, but the Eagle's targeting systems had already calculated every possible movement. The missile struck its mark, exploding the alien ship into a ball of flame and debris. Mason didn't celebrate. He rolled the jet, dodging incoming fire from the other ships. The alien fighters were quick, but the Eagle was quicker. He twisted through the air, avoiding their lasers with ease, firing back whenever he had a clear shot. One by one, the alien ships fell, their wreckage littering the sky. But more were coming. They were endless, swarming like locusts, determined to stop him before he could reach their command ship. The closer Mason got to the mothership, the thicker the resistance became. Squadrons of alien fighters formed a protective ring around the massive vessel, firing relentlessly as he approached. The mothership itself was a hulking beast, hovering ominously over the landscape. Its dark, angular hull was studded with turrets and shields that shimmered in the afternoon light. This was the alien stronghold, the heart of their invasion force. Mason pushed the Eagle to its limits, weaving through enemy fire, dodging missiles, and returning fire whenever possible. His mind was racing, his instincts on overdrive. Every second counted. He had to get close enough to deploy the Eagle's payload, an EMP bomb designed to disrupt the alien ship's shields. Without it, his weapons wouldn't be able to penetrate the ship's defenses. The alien fighters closed in on him, determined to stop him. One of their ships clipped the Eagle's wing, sending the jet into a spin. Mason gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls, righting the aircraft just in time to avoid crashing into the side of a mountain. His heart was pounding, but he didn't let the fear take hold. There was no time for fear. He fired back, taking out 2 more alien ships in quick succession, and pressed forward. The mothership loomed larger with every passing second. He was close now, close enough to see the individual turrets swiveling in his direction. The Eagle's sensors blared warnings, but Mason didn't slow down. He initiated the EMP launch sequence, the bomb primed and ready to go. All he needed was a clear shot. With a burst of speed, Mason dodged the last of the alien fighters and lined up his approach. The mothership's shields glowed a faint blue, rippling with energy as the turrets locked onto him. He had one chance to make this work. One chance to bring down the shields and cripple the aliens' hold on Earth. He pressed the trigger. The EMP bomb launched from the Eagle's underbelly, hurtling toward the mothership at breakneck speed. Mason pulled up hard, veering away from the alien vessel just as the bomb detonated. A wave of energy rippled across the sky, distorting the air and causing the alien fighters to stutter in their movements. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Then, the mothership's shields flickered, dimmed, and finally collapsed. Mason's heart leaped. It had worked. The alien ship's turrets continued to fire, but without the shields, they were vulnerable. Mason banked hard, circling back around for the final attack. The Eagle's weapons systems locked onto the mothership's weak points, highlighting its exposed reactors and command centers. This was it, their Achilles heel. Mason released the payload. A barrage of missiles streaked toward the mothership, slamming into its vulnerable points with devastating accuracy. Explosions rocked the alien vessel, tearing through its hull, sending debris flying in every direction. The ship shuddered, its structure collapsing in on itself as fire and smoke billowed from within. The alien fleet, once so mighty and unstoppable, was now in complete disarray. With their command ship crippled, the remaining fighters scattered, leaderless and disoriented. Mason watched as they fled, abandoning their positions, their coordination shattered. But it wasn't over yet. The mothership was still in the air, damaged but not destroyed. Mason knew he couldn't leave it standing. He pushed the Eagle into a steep dive, heading straight for the heart of the alien ship. His hands were steady, his mind focused. This was it. One final blow to end it all. The Eagle's targeting system locked onto the reactor core, now exposed and vulnerable after the barrage of missiles. Mason fired the last of his weapons, sending a salvo of laser-guided bombs straight into the reactor. There was a moment of eerie silence as the bombs made contact. Then, the mothership erupted in a massive explosion, flames engulfing the entire vessel. Mason pulled up just in time to avoid the shockwave, the force of the blast rocking the Eagle. He steadied the jet, watching as the alien mothership disintegrated, falling from the sky in a blaze of fire and wreckage. It crashed into the mountains below, the impact sending tremors through the earth. It was done. The mothership was destroyed. Mason allowed himself a moment of relief, his breathing heavy, his muscles aching from the tension of the battle. He had done it. Against all odds, he had taken down the heart of the alien invasion. The Eagle, humanity's forgotten weapon, had delivered victory when all seemed lost. But the war wasn't over. Mason knew that. The aliens would regroup, and more battles lay ahead. But for now, for this moment, humanity had struck back. Mason's fingers loosened their grip on the controls, the tension finally starting to drain from his body. The sky, once thick with enemy ships and laser fire, was now eerily quiet. The only sound was the hum of the Eagle's engines as he guided the jet away from the wreckage of the mothership. Below him, the remains of the alien command vessel smoldered, half buried in the mountainside. Flames licked the air, casting long shadows as the sun began to dip toward the horizon. He'd done it. Against all odds, the impossible had become real. He had taken down the mothership, something that no one believed could happen. For the first time in years, the alien fleet had been dealt a significant blow, one that would ripple through their ranks. But as Mason soared above the battlefield, the weight of what he had accomplished began to settle in his mind. There was no victory celebration, no cheering crowds. The stronghold below was still silent, unaware of what had transpired in the skies above. Mason knew that this win, while crucial, was only the beginning. The destruction of the mothership would slow the aliens down, cause confusion among their forces, but they would regroup. The war wasn't over. This was just a small spark in the grand scheme of things, a single victory in a much larger conflict. He guided the Eagle back toward the hidden stronghold, descending from the sky as the mountains came back into view. The stronghold, the last remnant of human civilization, sat nestled deep within the rocky cliffs, camouflaged from alien detection. As Mason neared the landing pad, he allowed his thoughts to drift back to the survivors. The people who had huddled in fear for so long, those who had all but given up. How would they react when they learned what had happened? As he landed, the quiet of the stronghold washed over him once more. The ground crew, consisting of a few weary faces, rushed out to meet him, their expressions filled with a mix of disbelief and hope. Mason stepped out of the cockpit, the exhaustion of the day hitting him hard now that the adrenaline had faded. He didn't need to say anything. The sight of the returning Eagle was enough. Whispers spread quickly through the ranks. Something had happened, something big. But Mason didn't linger to explain. He walked past the group, his mind already shifting to what came next. Inside the base, the few remaining leaders of the resistance sat huddled around maps and terminals, still trying to make sense of the situation. When Mason entered, they looked up, surprise flickering across their faces. They hadn't expected him to return. No one had expected anyone to come back from a mission like this. Without waiting for questions, Mason moved to the center of the room, his voice low but firm. He explained what had happened, how the Eagle had made it possible, how the mothership had been brought down. For a moment, there was silence. The leaders exchanged glances, their disbelief clear. It wasn't until one of them asked for details that the gravity of the situation began to sink in. They had a chance now. The aliens weren't invincible. Yet, as the reality of the situation became clear, so did the enormity of the challenges ahead. Mason didn't sugarcoat it. The aliens would retaliate. They would come back, likely stronger and more aggressive than before. This was a temporary reprieve, a window of opportunity that they couldn't afford to waste. The survivors needed to mobilize, to rebuild, to prepare for the next assault. There was no time to rest on this victory. He could see the uncertainty in their eyes. Years of defeat had left its mark on everyone, and the idea of fighting back still seemed foreign. But now, with the mothership destroyed, they had something they hadn't had in years: hope. And hope, Mason knew, could be just as powerful as any weapon. As the leaders began discussing plans, strategies, and next steps, Mason slipped away, moving through the dimly lit halls of the stronghold. The weight of what had been accomplished sat heavy on his shoulders. He had given them a fighting chance, But the cost of this war was far from over. He passed by survivors, some of them already hearing the news, their faces lighting up with a mixture of hope and disbelief. But for Mason, there was little time to bask in the moment. His mind was already turning to the future. The aliens would strike back, and when they did, they needed to be ready. The Eagles were powerful, but they couldn't win the war alone. They would need pilots, resources, and a renewed sense of unity among the survivors. The destruction of the mothership had shaken the enemy, but it wasn't enough to end the invasion. He found himself outside again, staring up at the sky, the stars beginning to emerge as dusk settled over the mountains. Somewhere out there, the rest of the alien fleet was regrouping, recalculating. They wouldn't be caught off guard again. Next time, they would come with more force, more firepower. Mason knew they couldn't afford another long retreat into the mountains. This was their moment to push forward, to take the fight to the enemy. As the night deepened, Mason stood alone, contemplating the road ahead. The victory in the skies today had shown that humanity could still fight, still push back. But now, it was up to them to decide what came next. The world was still broken, but the spark had been lit. Mason had given them the tools to reignite the fight, but it would take more than just one man in a jet to reclaim Earth. It would take all of them. For the first time in a long time, Mason felt the stirrings of hope. Not the naive hope that had been crushed at the beginning of the invasion, but something stronger, something rooted in the knowledge that the fight wasn't over yet. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but they hadn't fallen. Not completely. He turned back toward the stronghold, his eyes narrowing with determination. There was still so much to do, so many battles ahead. But tonight, at least, they had won. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new enemies, but Mason was ready. The Eagles had proven their worth, and now it was time for humanity to prove theirs.